As I live and breathe, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to our weekly fantasy podcast here on YouTube, here on Facebook, and here on Twitch. As always, make sure if you're new to the channel, hit that like, hit that subscribe, follow button, all that stuff, because we come to you live every Friday at 6:30. So I say we because I, Mr. Improv P, cannot do it by myself. Of course, I need the legend that is Mr. J Rush.
What's
J
up,
Rush.
everybody? How are we
Evening.
doing?
So a
Howdy.
lot of craziness we're going to talk about. Of course, we will be going through our wonderful week 8 results, talking to you about the games, and then giving our predictions, our fantasy advice. So make sure you drop some knowledge in the comments or questions about fantasy. But first, on the to-do list, Mr. J, trade deadline happened.
It did.
So I
Tell me
figured we'd
about
take
it.
a couple minutes to talk about it, see what your thoughts are. I would love to get your first thoughts on the trade inside the division. Of course, I'm talking about good old Hawkins in the tight end going to the Vikings.
Well, like I've told you every single week on this show, Vikings the best team in the division, looking to bolster their team and actually make a legitimate playoff run. Because unfortunately for the Vikings, they probably won't be playing the Saints in the playoffs, so they need that little extra help to get them over the top. and good start there. Give them an extra weapon. Justin Jefferson doesn't have to do it all, which oddly enough he hasn't had a touchdown since week 1. I believe, but yeah, give themselves some weapons and get the ball rolling on, hopefully for them, a deep playoff run.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that that's 100% what they're doing. And Hawkinson, we've always talked on this show, I feel is a top 5 tight end. He, especially if he has a good week, he's going to have a good week. And going with Kirk Cousins, I mean, how is that not the play to drive your team? You have Jefferson, you have Cook at the running back. You also have the veteran in Thielen. I mean, you have a star-studded team. And I might say that they might be, besides obviously we'll get to the Philadelphia Eagles, but I could see them being the runner-up for the best team in the conference.
Certainly could be. Obviously, we'll talk about the Eagles, but yeah.
Any other trades entice you, invite you, any of them?
I mean, to be honest, the big trades all happened before this. Hawkinson was a nice one. Everybody's adding bits and pieces. The bigger news is the big running backs didn't get traded. Kareem Hunt stayed put. Cam Akers stayed put. Alvin Kamara stayed put.
Well,
Insert
we'll get to that.
insert running back name. They stayed put.
But
Brandon Cooks stayed put.
may I ask you a question?
You may.
You said there weren't any big moves, and we already talked about, of course, the NFC North, but surprised about the Packers not picking up anybody, giving Aaron Rodgers a weapon?
No, you can add them to the list of trade deadline losers, obviously, because they needed to add something. They did not. So they didn't improve their standing, which literally says to me that they concede the North to the Vikings and are probably one of those teams just sitting there saying, hey, if we make the playoffs, great. And if we don't, give us that draft pick.
Fair enough, fair enough. But of course, let's go into all those games and more. Of course, with our 8-week results. So let's go to the box and start off with the Thursday night game of the Ravens winning 27-22. Bucks falling behind again. Is this the Tom Brady just his emotional well-being is at risk with the divorce and now not having a good fantasy week? No weeks over 20, Joe. What's going on?
Oh, that's been a trend.
Should you panic if you have players on Tampa Bay?
I'm going to say no because Mike Evans is still a really good standalone. Fournette gets his points. Not so much rushing, but he gets his points. Godwin, when healthy, is still a machine. So I'm going to say no, just Tom Brady's not getting it done. I mean, he threw for 325 and a touchdown, but fantasy-wise, that's not enough. We needed multiple touchdowns, maybe a few less yards, but multiple touchdowns. But again, like I said, Mike Evans 6 for 123, Godwin 6 for 75, Leonard Fournette had 3 catches and a rushing touchdown, so they got their points. Julio Jones didn't do much but caught a touchdown, so if for some reason you started him, you probably got his projected. So overall, like I said, you probably got what you expected, except for maybe Brady. I don't remember. He ended with like 17 or something
Yeah,
in our
17
leagues.
and change, but it was not pretty. But let's move on from the Thursday night game to the Broncos Jags. Broncos 21. Russell Wilson, we ride.
Well, the big news of this game was it was another London game, so another reason not to wake up early on a Sunday. They did finally win a game, as in the Broncos. They beat a team that they were literally on par with, but should have beaten. Russell Wilson, not good. 18 of 30 is not great. Threw a touchdown, threw a pick. Tavius Murray had a touchdown. Melvin Gordon had a touchdown. Both not running effectively, though, so that's scary for Denver. Jerry Jeudy didn't get traded. You can throw that into the list. He did catch a touchdown in that game. Cortland Sutton was nowhere to be found. That's a bit concerning. Jacksonville's offense, also a bit concerning, where Travis Etienne ran for 156 yards, but Trevor Lawrence threw for 133 yards. So, that being said, they need Trevor Lawrence progressing, not regressing. So they need to get that going more. Great for ETN owners. Horrible if for whatever reason you had Trevor Lawrence, because he like a lot of the quarterbacks in that draft class are tending to go in the wrong direction. He turned the ball over 3 times.
Oh, we lost him. Oh, I was picking up stats and we lost him. Oh, my apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Let's try to see where the hell he went. Man down indeed, Mr. J. So I guess I will just carry on for a minute or two. So let's move on to the Dolphins Lions. Dolphins showing that they're still contenders in the AFC East. So that should be he's back. See, we're all good. Oh, man down indeed, but he's back.
We'll just use the phone from now on since the internet is dumb.
All of a sudden, I was looking down for something, then silence, and I was just like, "Oh, that cannot be good, ladies and gentlemen."
Lesson learned: don't look down, and you'll get the things.
Sorry, I'm excited to talk about a game. Dolphins Lions. Lions at 30. Excuse me, Dolphins 31. Lions 27. Good week for Swift fans.
Great week for Swift fans, considering they said that Jamal Williams is starting this upcoming week. So, easy breakdown. Jared Goff, better than normal, but not good enough. Jamal Williams did his thing. So, the fact was that Jamal Williams averages more yards per game and per carry than Harris, Taylor, and one other big running back. So they kind of liking where that's going. So they're starting Williams this week. He averaged 5.3 yards. That's what he averages on the season. Hawkins' last game with Detroit, he had 80 yards receiving. Khalif Raymond stepped up, had 76. St. Brown had 7 catches, not a ton of yards, but 7 catches. And Swift had 5 for a touchdown. So he did put up some points, but did not. He only had 5 carries as a running back. On the Dolphins side, Tua, huge game, almost 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill, 188. Waddle, 106 with 2 touchdowns. Literally their whole offense. I guess the big news here in Miami is they added Jeff Wilson, who played with Mostert in San Fran. So those two are reunited to hopefully spark the running game. They shipped out Chase Edmonds, so Wilson will be the clear number 2 for now. And if anything happens to Mostert, a new held on to Wilson, whether it's a dynasty league, not a dynasty, whatever. If you held on to him, he could be in line to get a decent chunk of carries because of Mostert's injury history. So he might be a name to keep an eye on just in case.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. And you heard it here where the Falcons become first place in the NFC South against the best, I would say, offensive run of the season for the Panthers. However, they were great offensively. You would think they would win, but no, they're kicker. So talk to me about this game, Mr. J. You think that it's high time that the Panthers get a kicker?
Well, I don't think anybody's running in the league like, oh man, the Panthers kicker woes are their biggest issue. But
DJ
simplified,
Moore, though, 26 fantasy points.
well, 6 for 152 and a touchdown will do it for you. Deontay Foreman without Hubbard, 26 for 118 and 3 touchdowns. Hubbard's out again this week.
Yes, yes, he is.
So
As
if
of
you're a
this
Devontae
afternoon.
Foreman owner, you're probably gonna play him. They're also not playing the Falcons this week, so I wouldn't expect those type of numbers, but he's definitely more than serviceable. Falcons side, Mariota actually threw the ball this week, shockingly.
Love to see that.
20 of 28, 3 touchdowns, but 2 picks. Kyle Pitts had his best game, 5 for 80 and a touchdown. Bird had another touchdown. Algier had a receiving touchdown, but he was drastically outrushed by Huntley. So that's not a fluid situation running wise in Atlanta, but Mr. Patterson has been activated off the injured reserve. Well, they have 21 days to put him on the active roster. Essentially, what it is. Once he gets activated from there, they have 3 weeks to activate him. So anytime within the next 3 weeks, Cordell Patterson could be back, which would be big for their running and essentially their passing
100%,
game because he's a
100%.
big blanket for Mariota. So Atlanta being a first place team is getting some help, which is
There you
nice to
go, and
see
you'd
for
love
them.
to see that this with the division as shitty as it is. Vikings beating Arizona 34-26, showing that they are the front runners for being the best team in the NFC,
Definitely the
next
best
to
team
a
in the
certain
NFC.
couple, which we'll get
Best
to.
team in the NFC North, definitely. Kyler Murray is better than normal, but not great.
But it was a Call of Duty weekend.
He threw 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, so I could see where those came from. Their running game was non-existent. He was their leading rusher. He with 36 yards, he didn't really light it up. He had a long of 8. It was all DeAndre Hopkins and Rondell Moore. Hopkins at 12 for 159. Moore 7 for 92 and a touchdown. Zach Ertz, not a monster's day, but he also caught a touchdown, and that was all of that Cardinals offense. Kirk Cousins did what he did. Didn't throw for a ton of yards. Didn't throw 80 times a game like everyone else, but threw 2 touchdowns. Didn't turn it over. Dalvin Cook did him. He 20 for 111, a touchdown. Madison 5 for 40 and a touchdown. Cousins ran in a touchdown. As I said earlier, Justin Jefferson pretty much got his 100 yards. No touchdowns though.
But a
Adam,
solid Viking showing.
yeah, Thielen did his thing. Better than normal, 667. So he was about just under 10 fantasy points. Cook had another 5 catches to his 111 rushing yards. So big day for Dalvin Cook owners.
Let's go on to an embarrassing 49-29 win for the Cowboys. Cowboys almost in that 50 mark. Got trades like crazy for Lamb this week.
When you look at the final showing, yeah, it looks embarrassing. But the Bears were in this game early. Justin Fields, they still don't let him throw a ton. He was 17 of 23, which is way above what you would expect out of Justin Fields. He's the one quarterback in that class that seems to at least be progressing as a passer, but they still don't let him throw enough. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He did get sacked 4 times, but that's to be expected with a mobile quarterback, especially facing a team like Dallas. Darnell Mooney had 5 catches for 70 yards, so he's clearly the favorite. The more interesting thing was Khalil Herbert 16 carries, Dave Montgomery 15 carries. Herbert had a touchdown and 99 yards. Montgomery had 53 yards. So could be in line for a little something, possibly a swap at lead running back there in Chicago. Dave Montgomery will also be becoming a free agent, so that may open that up. Dallas aside, no Zeke, no problem. Tony Pollard, 14, 131, and 3 touchdowns, averaging almost 10 yards a carry. It's hard to
Love to
not
see
give him
that.
the ball. CeeDee Lamb, 77 yards, a touchdown. Dalton Schultz, 74 yards and a touchdown. And not amazing, but Michael Gallup is on the box score this week. He put up 7 fantasy points, which is better than the 0, 1s, and 2s he's been putting up. But they need to get him involved. I'm not sure if something's up with him or that's why they were looking at wide receivers. But when you're sitting there with Lamb and Gallup and Dalton Schultz, you shouldn't need more. And even Tony Pollard in that pass game. So I'm not sure what's up with that. But as you saw, Dallas put up 50 points, essentially controlling the second half of that game.
I want to talk about the magic number 3 for the next couple of games. Will you join me, sir?
Yeah, let's go.
Saints shut out Las Vegas 24-0, but that's not the big conversation. The big thing is Kamara, 3 touchdown game.
Yeah, he was one of 3 players with 3 touchdowns. Vegas, I don't know what happened. Teams coming from west to east struggle, but this was more than a struggle. Carr got sacked 3 times. Not, like, oh my goodness, he never had time to throw the ball, but he threw for 101 yards and a pick. Got pulled fairly early. Stidham threw 13 passes. He wasn't any more effective. He got sacked once. Josh Jacobs averaged 4.3, below his season average, but obviously didn't have much to work with there. Mac Hollins was their leading receiver. Big news there. Devontae Adams, 1 catch for your 3 yards.
1.2 fantasy
Yep,
points.
1 catch, 3 yards.
1.2.
The other side, Andy Dalton, Mr. Consistency, leads the Saints to another victory, keeping them only 1 game back in the division, sadly. No sacks, no interceptions. Obviously, as we stated earlier, it was the Alvin Kamara show. But to
Do you
be fair,
think that's why he was off the trade block?
what? Because of this game?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
He had 18 carries for 62 yards. Taysom Hill had 10 carries for 61 yards.
All right. I was just asking the question.
So no. His if anything, this game would have boosted up his value and they would have been looking to flip him out the door if that were the case. Especially knowing what we know this week as, go ahead and say it,
big news on New Orleans fine. Well, we shouldn't even say big news. It's ridiculous. Man's been out for 3 weeks at least. And then officially now, Saints plays Michael Thomas on the IR. Couldn't do this 3 weeks ago. Listen, I was having this argument with a coworker where he goes, has he really played since Drew Brees?
Well, let's simplify this. Whether they put him on the IR 3 weeks ago or not, he's now off for the year, so it wouldn't have made any difference.
Fair.
The fact that they knew that he was out and he was already going to be out, possibly at that time, even before the trade deadline, for at least the next 2 weeks, maybe more. If they were players and tried to make a move, they would have made a trade because they already knew Michael Thomas was an issue, was the issue, etc. So if they were really trying to make a run at this division, they would have been a team in that Brandon Cooks market. I understand that his asking price for his age and salary was stupidly high.
But he's been with the Saints
But
organization
that's what I'm saying
before.
is he's a familiar face.
Yep, I
So
agree
he
with
obviously would have fit in. Back to what your coworker or whatever asked you, Michael Thomas now played 10 games in 3 years. So that was a 16-game season, a 17-game season, and a 17-game season. So let's do the math. That's 10 games out of 50. So he plays a fifth of the games since Drew Brees is retired. My question would be, and this is more of something that usually tends to happen in baseball, not football. He broke the record for catches in a season, the year before all of these injuries started.
Yep.
Did that take too much of a toll on him making all those catches. I don't think that's a thing. It shouldn't have been a 3-year trend. Like I would understand if the first year
When
after
and
that,
out. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree.
but now we're 3 years deep and he's played 10. He's out for the season, so he's officially played 10 games in 3 years. So obviously there's something more concerning about it. The bigger concern will be when the Saints finally cut bait on him. Where does he end up going, and does he magically get healthy like everyone else does when they leave a team?
You
That's
gotta
what
think.
that's what needs to be seen. Do the Saints need to cut bait? Absolutely, but like I said, who's going to take a risk on him, and does he actually get healthy once that happens?
Questions. But definitely, like I said, I'm not gonna say it was a blow because he hasn't been playing, but definitely not the news you want to hear as a Saints fan, of
Of course,
course.
not only being 4-4 leads your division, and you're at 3-5, so having any
Mhm.
weapons helps.
Good thing is though for Saints fans, Jarvis Landry was seen practicing. So
Well, he's been just as big of a disappointment because
that's what I'm
he
saying.
didn't
At
get on
least
the
he's
field either.
practicing now.
Correct, but he was somebody that was going to be relied upon. Olave was going to be like the 2-3 receiver, and instead Olave's had to be the number 1 receiver with
Indeed.
not much behind him.
Keeping on this 3 talk, let's talk about the Eagles winning 35-13. But for AJ Brown fans, my goodness, 3 touchdown game for him.
AJ
I
Brown
think.
did go off, yes.
Let me tell you something. I think I hate to say it, but I think the Eagles are brilliant for getting AJ Brown because he's done more on this fucking Eagles team than he did in Tennessee.
Well, nobody would have doubted that. Completely different dynamic. He
Of course,
has
of
he
course.
has so in Tennessee, Derrick Henry's a running back.
Hmm.
So it's him and Derrick Henry, and that was it. Philly, you got to respect Hurts's run. We're going to talk about a Thursday night game, but Miles Sanders has been better, way better than last year.
Yeah, way better. I agree with that.
No matter what way you want to take it, nobody's saying he's the best running back in football, but compared to what he was last season, where he was completely flopped,
Hmm.
he's been light years better. So you got to respect Hurts now running and passing. I said something in the group chat that if he can master might be the wrong word, but if he can control his accuracy, we'll talk about it a Thursday game. He misses some wide open passes from time to time. If he can rein that in, he may be, and he probably is right now, the front runner because they're undefeated. He may be the NFL MVP. But so
I
yeah,
would love to see that though.
but as I was saying, they have AJ Brown, they have Dallas Goedert, they have Devonta Smith. They've got the weapons. So it's hard to just focus on, say, AJ Brown because you get beat by the other
Hmm.
4 guys.
Hmm.
So big drastic dynamic there. So as I said, Jalen Hurts great this game. I mean, he took a few too many sacks, but he was great in the game. 285, 4 touchdowns. Miles Sanders averaged almost 9 yards a carry. He had a touchdown. AJ Brown had 3 touchdowns. Zach Pascal, who hasn't been a part of their offense, he had 2 for 57 and a touchdown. He's a very physical receiver. So he's somebody who can set that up. We talk about Robert Woods and his blocking and stuff like that. Zach Pascal is somebody who isn't going to get 7, 8, 9 targets a game, but with his other intangibles, he makes things happen, makes everybody around him better. So he had 2 for 57 and a touchdown, which was good to see for him. Let him get some love, let him get a touchdown. Devonta Smith had 5 catches, only 23 yards. So, we're nitpicking at where they were. And we'll talk about the same thing on Thursday night because he didn't do much there. Would be maybe getting Smith more involved in offense. Pickett sacked 6 times, threw a pick, didn't crack 200 yards. Their leading rusher was Jalen Warren. Their second leading rusher was Kenny Pickett. And then their third leading rusher was Najee Harris. So major concerns still there with the Steelers' run game. Freiermuth was their best receiver. Claypool was their second best receiver. He got traded to Chicago. Yes, I didn't say there was a lot more major trades.
Because what the fuck
But
was that?
but this one needs to be seen. You know, they have a ton of cap room, the Bears. So they getting Claypool for 2. You know, presumably it's going to be a decent 2, but you're getting somebody who could be a proven playmaker for Justin Fields. So that opens up to Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool now having, you know, I would assume Claypool's playing this week, but give it next week, you know, after you've had a full week with your team. So I would be extremely curious to see Chicago's offense that week. I think they've already had their bye. I could be wrong, but you know, assuming they have a game in week 10, you know, I want to see does Fields get a chance to really like start pushing that offense so that they can move forward. But like I said, not great. DeAndre Johnson 5 catches for only 35 yards. Najee Harris had 6 catches. He only had 26 yards. They're really not a team moving the ball down the field. George Pickens had no catches on 3 targets. Obviously, he's going to be a bigger part of their offense going forward with Claypool being out, but they're not stretching the field by any means necessary because they're struggling running, and their offense literally is a dink and dunk, and they can't even really do that.
We're gonna get very sensitive right here. Now, let's talk about the Patriots winning 22 against the Jets. Hall being out does it show in this game?
No,
Tell me what you think.
no. There is one huge difference in this game. Two huge differences in the game. The first one, realistically, was poor decision making by Zach Wilson, and he came out and said after the game that he's not a fan of throwing the ball away. He had 3 atrocious interceptions. Brees Hall being in the game wouldn't have affected any of those
Fair.
because he had a play where he was scrambling. All he had to do was flip the ball out of bounds. He threw it inbounds to an open area where there was no receiver because he didn't want to throw it away. What's the point? If it doesn't get intercepted, it's incomplete because you had no receiver there. So what's the difference between throwing it out of bounds or making this horrible pass that only the Patriots would have been able to intercept? So that being said, yes, he threw for 355 yards. We had 3 of the worst interceptions I've probably ever seen in my life. So that was the big part. But the biggest part of this game, which is my part 2, is the amount of patheticness that we're getting, and it's not every week, but with the roughing the passer calls, that literally change the dynamic of a game. And I know people say, "Oh, it's a dynamic of the rule and this and that." Literally, it had nothing to do with the play. The interception was already thrown. Michael Carter, who intercepted it, was already standing in the end zone celebrating, and then here comes the flag for roughing the passer. The Patriots end up going down, kicking a field goal, so it was, you know, you can't assume an extra point in this day's NFL because kickers are all over the place. But essentially, it was a 9-point swing. It went from a Jets pick 6 to a Patriots field goal. You take that 3 points off, you're looking at Patriots 19. You add the 6 points to the Jets, you get the Jets at least 23. So literally, the score flips just on that play alone. That is my issue to that game. I get it. They lost. You don't want to lose, especially to a division opponent. But they did not outplay you. Mac Jones didn't crack 200 yards. He threw a pick. He got sacked 6 times. So he wasn't good. Their running game averaged 3.7 yards a carry. Not good. Their leading receiver was a running back. Not great as well. Jacoby Myers did have 9 catches, but Stevenson out yardaged him. Hunter Henry had a whopping 1 catch. Damian Harris had 2 catches. Thornton had 1 catch. Aguilar had 1 catch. Parker got hurt, and he is out this week, so that receiving core is not great. As I said over here, Zach Wilson threw for 355 yards. The Jets said that they were not going to get Robinson like overly involved because again he didn't have the full week, so I understood that. He had 5 rushes. Michael Carter had 7, which isn't good either. But Garrett Wilson, 115 yards. Conklin, huge game for him, 79 yards, 2 TDs. Mims, who got a chance to play because a multitude of different things, he had 76 yards. Unfortunately, Elijah Moore had 1 target. They interviewed him after the game, asked him about, well, I don't remember if it was this week or last week. Either way, they interviewed him after the game, asked him about his chemistry with Zach Wilson. He said, I don't know because I don't get the ball. That's not going to help your cause. I get it. You don't want to be here. You want to be the guy who gets 8 catches a game and loses by 30. I'm no way, shape, or form saying the Jets are a great team, but after this week they are 5-3, which is A, better than the Patriots, B, better than a lot of teams that are supposed to be, playoff contenders at least. So, do you want to win or do you want to get your catches? I understand you get paid for putting up numbers, but you can't get both. I mean, you can get both sides of it, but you need to work for that. Garrett Wilson got 6 for 115. So is he getting open? Is he that much better than you already? What is your answer? Does he work harder than you in practice, and that's why he gets his number called? Denzel Mims asked for a trade, was a healthy scratch for every game up until like 2 weeks ago. He got touches. So what does that say about you? Next up, looks like we get the Titans game. Expect nothing less here. Maybe a little more scoring would have been nice, but Malik got his first start. Only threw the ball 10 times, threw a pick, got sacked 3 times. So nothing pretty there, but Derrick Henry, 32, 219, 2 touchdowns. They stayed to their plan. They ran the ball for 314 yards. They didn't try to do anything fancy. Robert Woods was their only receiver with more than 1 catch, and he had 2. So no shock there by the Titans. Mills, 152 yards and a touchdown, not great. Pierce was not good in this game, but we'll talk about them later because he did put up some numbers on Thursday night, but he did not in this game. Brandon Cooks, who was expected to get traded, he had 4 for 73. No one else on their offense did anything. But it wasn't a pretty game for them. Shockingly, for a team that ran for 314 yards and averaged 7 yards a rush, to only score 17 points, a little concerning, but they did what they needed to do and they won. Not much else to say about that.
Seahawks 27, Giants 13. Giants, is it over? Both New York teams, is it done for?
Well, so I talked to Bernie at Bowling, and he was like, the bigger difference is the Giants are still 6-2, and obviously the NFC is not very good.
Mm-hmm.
Another Daniel Jones game, huge 176 yards passing. I can't believe how elite he is. No touchdowns. Sure, he threw no picks as well. But he does. I'm gonna break it down simply. All these Giants fans are, Daniel Jones this and Daniel Jones that. They do not take any risks with Daniel Jones at quarterback. So you're gonna get this every single game. 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. He's not doing anything special. Which now, as we saw, they lost by 2 touchdowns. Why? Because they don't take any risks. Throw the ball down the field. Oh, the Giants receivers are hurt. Throw the ball down the field. Maybe somebody will actually do something. Maybe they're not expecting you to throw the ball down the field and you'll catch them off guard. Maybe the defender slips. Maybe you get a huge pass interference call. Any of those things. Take a risk. Instead, we're just going to sit here every single week. Daniel Jones threw for 158 yards. Daniel Jones threw for 162 yards. Daniel Jones threw for 112 yards. What else is new?
Will you go insane if he throws a 300?
I mean, hell might freeze over if he throws
like 4
for 300.
touchdowns.
We literally just saw a game where they lost by 14, and he was Marcus Mariota. Throw the ball down the field. He averaged 5.7 yards per completion. What is that? I get it. The Seahawks had a good start to their season and all that, and they're leading the division. But the
And give it
Seahawks,
up to Geno Smith, who I think is doing a great job in Seattle.
sure, but he doesn't play defense. This isn't the Legion of Boom. I don't see Sherman and Bobby Wagner and
Yeah.
Cam Chancellor and all them.
No, I get you. I get you.
Earl Thomas, I don't see them leading the charge. We're well away from that Seahawks team, and they're over here. Saquon Barkley averaged 2 yards a carry. Daniel Jones only ran for 20 yards. He can't. We know damn well he can't throw the ball. So usually, he throws for 100 yards and runs for 100 yards, which makes his 200 yards. He didn't do that. He didn't. He ran for 20 yards. Congrats. Barkley did have a touchdown, but again, 20 carries, averaging 2 yards a carry is not great.
We don't like that.
Slayton was their leading receiver with 5. Not much else. Wandell Robinson had 2 catches for 15 yards. Geno Smith on the other side, he doesn't need to light it up. His numbers aren't that much better than Daniel Jones, but completely different offenses. And guess what? He threw 2 touchdowns. He threw 3 more passes than Jones, threw for 40 more yards than Jones, and threw 2 more touchdowns than Jones. Walker
To be fair, you also have 2 quality receivers on Seattle between Lockett and Metcalf. So to have those weapons, I would hope that you would throw more.
Great. So what? So the Giants should go sign Odell Beckham, or why didn't the Giants go trade for a wide receiver? They were in on Jerry Jeudy. Why didn't they get him? We're gonna hold out on a draft pick. We can't afford to give up this draft pick. If you're allegedly a playoff team because you're so good according to everybody, your draft pick's not gonna be that good. Why? What are you holding out on?
I don't know who you give it worse to, Giants or Patriots, man. I tell you.
Well, one team cheats and the other one's just stupid.
Commanders Colts 17-16.
Whoever won this game, it was essentially going to be 4-4. I get it. The Colts have a tie, so we're gonna put that towards the loss column just because you didn't win. Commanders ended up winning. Heineke wins again. Terry McLaurin, as you heard here, and you hear here from me every time, 6 for 113. Plays much better with Heineke. I told you to play him. I told you that every time. He plays much better with Heineke. They win the game.
Gibson.
To an extent, but their game scripting is so horrible. Heineke was their leading rusher. Heineke had 6 carries. Robinson had 8 carries. Gibson had 7 carries. What? What are we doing?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And Curtis Samuel, who's a receiver, also had 4 carries. So throw that in the mix. You had a quarterback with 6 carries, a receiver with 4, and your 2 non-running backs with 10 carries, and 2 running backs with combined 15 carries. Yes, there's more of that. McLaurin had a negative 7-yard rush. But give me more.
But he makes up for it.
But give me more, pick one, stick to it. Whether it's Robinson or Gibson, hitch the wagon to them. I'm not saying it's got to be huge discrepancies, but you got to get them in the flow of the game. If you're not establishing the run and your running backs are not in the flow,
it throws everything out of whack.
It's tough to win. Thankfully, the Colts are starting a backup quarterback, so that helps you. Like you said, Gibson plays better, but Gibson had 7 catches. So in that sense, yes, Gibson was much better than Robinson. I don't believe Robinson even had a catch. So that's where the value for Gibson comes. The Colts, Ellinger, 17-23, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we're looking at Daniel Jones, just on another team. Taylor played, average 5 yards a carry, very acceptable, but did not have a touchdown. Didn't get a ton of carries, and then like you said, he's out this week, which also is scary because they traded Hines to Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you asked me, it's not ground shattering. I don't even know how he fits in. I need to see this because now you've got Singletary, Moss, Hines. They're literally almost, I feel like they're all the same thing. And then Cook. Cook is the one who's different than the other 3. Like I don't know. So I feel like they just traded for a third of the same player. Is Hines better than Moss? Probably. Is he on par with Singletary?
I
Probably.
probably. Yeah.
So I don't understand it. I I would have rather seen Buffalo. Yeah, they're in my division. Go get Cam Akers or go get Kareem Hunt. You know, somebody who is different. I mean, Kareem Hunt's not extremely different than those guys, but Kareem Hunt can catch ball. Kareem Hunt can run the ball effectively when given that lead role. So I just wanted to see a little something more in that trade. But like I said, so you got no Taylor, you trade away Hines, so it's a Deion Jackson week.
Good old Deion
So
Jackson.
if Deion Jackson is available in your leagues, you need to be running to get him. He shouldn't be available in your leagues if your league pays attention. Passing him again leaves a lot to be desired. Pierce, receiving yards, he was at just under 22, which is nice. We only had 3 catches. Pittman had 7 catches, not a ton of yards. Paris Campbell had 43 yards. Hines had 29 yards. We're not spreading the field. We're not throwing the ball down the field, which does not help Taylor when he plays because if you're only dinking and dunking, safeties come up, and now you're trying to run the ball. Safeties are already up there. So, like I said, these teams that are struggling to run the ball, there's, most of the time it seems to be that that's the reason. Like the Steelers, they're just dinking and dunking. So when they hand the ball off to Harris, the guys are already up here. You're 5 guys. You throw a tight end in there, maybe 6 guys. Your 6 guys aren't blocking 8, 9 guys. It just doesn't work. Simple math. Teach math multiple times a day. 8 or 9 are both greater than 6. It's hard to block, so it's hard to get momentum, etc. I need to see better scripting, especially because there's rumors saying that the Colts coach is probably on the hot seat and probably won't be back. So how do you save your season? You keep going. You keep status quo. You ain't going nowhere. Do something. Spread the ball out. Michael Pittman's a great receiver.
Yeah, unutilized on that team.
Pierce has been breaking out. Don't be afraid to throw the ball. Like I said, Pierce had 22 yards a catch almost. So obviously he can get down the field and get the ball. Throw it down the field and try something. It's better than losing 17-16 every week.
Indeed. 49ers winning a division game against the Rams, 31-14.
Well, so this was the unveiling, we'll say, of Christian McCaffrey. Yes, he played the first game with
But
him,
it wasn't full week.
but was limited. This was the unveiling of Christian McCaffrey. 18 carries, perfect. Threw a touchdown, great. Caught a touchdown,
Great.
Caught 8 passes. So realistically, he had 27. We'll count the throw in there. He had 27 touches. Division game, I fully understand that. Maybe a few too many. Maybe keep him to like 25. To keep him healthy. But he caught a touchdown, passed a touchdown, rushed a touchdown. First time since 2005. LaDainian Tomlinson. We know what a great player he was. He's a Hall of Famer. If McCaffrey could stay healthy, he would be on that same path. But for this game, where the winner had 4 wins, whichever team won the game would have had 4 wins. San Fran had 4 wins. Getting McCaffrey's huge. They seem to be trending in the right direction. Again, as I said earlier, 49ers flipped Jeff Wilson to Miami, partially because Elijah Mitchell is also in that same boat where he's going to be coming back shortly, like Cordarrelle Patterson. So there was no real need for them to have Jeff Wilson. So you flip them, you get whatever you can for him, and you say thank you. I don't know why more teams don't do this, but I'm not a GM. What do I know? So good on them. Brandon Ayuk, 6 catches, 81 yards and a touchdown. Like I said, McCaffrey had 8 catches. George Kittle had 3 for 39, which is not great, and a touchdown. No Debo this week, so go ahead. You're gonna have to hop in.
Yeah, I got you. Give me a second. Yeah. So let's look at this. So yeah, absolutely great game from McCaffrey. I think San Fran going in the right direction. Definitely going to be a competition. Can't wait down the line to see that 49ers Seahawks battle. That's going to be a nice battle to watch and probably fantasy relevant. But let's move on because I love I love it. The Bills just making their sense known. I mean, absolute dominance, absolute greatness from Josh Allen, rolling through Packers, packing it in. Not much for the Packers at all. Flew by where we talk about the upset of the Browns beating the Bengals 32-13. Hate to see it. We saw that the Bengals were treading in the right direction, but of course, losing Chase did hurt them. Of course, you had Higgins and Tyler Boyd. So, in that respect, they were fine, but definitely, I think it just was a deflation with not having Chase and obviously being home with the Browns. Huge, huge advantage, home advantage. You know, I always talk about it. But we're going to move on to, of course, the last night's game, Thursday night game. Eagles taking on the Texans 29-13 or 17, excuse me. Eagles staying undefeated. I mean, AJ Brown fans get their touchdown, get their 80 points. Love to see that. Like Mr. J was saying earlier, Miles Sanders, my God, put it in the work. Like I wish I had them back this year because last year, of course, he had this sporadic couple of good games, but all in all, much better season. I mean, I don't know what Mr. J here would say, but I would argue that he's a top 10 right now running back in the league.
Well,
Uh,
while you're in charge, running with it. Yeah, he's fifth in rush attempts, sixth in carries, tied for fourth in touchdowns. So yeah, I was
That's what I'm saying. So good on I think the Eagles have a nice thing over there, especially with AJ Brown getting that acquisition. And I mean, the question remains, Mr. J, do they stay undefeated?
that will to be seen. I was just looking up his numbers. So he had 754 yards all of last season. He's at 656 yards right now. So he's 98 yards off of last year's pace. His best season was in 20, where he had 867. So realistically, he's 200 yards away from career highs. So yes, he's having a much better season. Definitely than expected, because in that season where he had his 867, he had 6 touchdowns. He's already at 6 touchdowns. So he's probably going to set career high in touchdowns. And he's obviously looks like he's a real good chance of setting career high in rushing yards. And you know what else is huge for this year? He has 0 fumbles. So he's taking care of the ball as well, which is big because your coaching staff gets comfortable with you. They know you're not going to turn it over, which means you get the ball.
Huh?
Will they stay undefeated? Next week they have the Commanders, and then they have the Colts, and then they have your boy Aaron Rodgers. So
I mean, that's a I could see undefeated with those three.
looks realistic. Then they get a test, but again, not a great team, especially because right now Ryan Tannehill is probably out again, but they play the Titans. So
Okay.
obviously Derrick Henry will give them a push for their money. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Giants, very winnable game. Chicago, very winnable game.
Yeah.
We'll skip the next week. So their second to last game is against the good old Saints.
God, wouldn't that be a
So it's an
thing?
extremely winnable game. They close out the season with the Giants again. So again, another winnable game. Realistically they play
So Tennessee, you're worried about.
four teams with a winning record. I skipped one of them just because. So they play Tennessee once, they play
Okay.
Dallas once, and they play the Giants twice.
I don't know. All I know is with their win last night, most wins in franchise history. So are they going to keep that going? We'll
So,
see.
so if they survive Tennessee, their next big game is Dallas. If they beat Dallas, then yeah, I think they do. But again, as we've seen, anything can happen in the NFL. But they play four teams with a winning record. The Commanders, who play them next week, unless the Commanders beat them, it ends it anyway. So if they beat the Commanders next week, the Commanders go to 4-5, so they don't have a winning record anyway. They're a 500 team at the moment.
Yeah, I get you.
So
let's talk about a team that initially we wrote off, but seeing that Mr. Jonathan Taylor is out, and I love that home field advantage. We have Colts taking on the Pats, and we are in good old Foxborough.
This seems to be another one of those games where you're like, oh, cool, the Patriots are playing somebody. Patriots might win by 20. Patriots might lose by 20. Who knows? Again, as I said, no Taylor. Trade away Hines. Home game. Patriots haven't looked great. Mac Jones hasn't been good since coming back. So I don't want to say that I could see this game going either way, but this is a must-win game for the Patriots. That would put them right there with the Jets. We know the Jets play Buffalo this week. So this would be a big step in the right direction for Patriots if they are going to make a playoff push. So this is a game they should win, and I feel like they must win. No Parker this week. He had pretty good chemistry with Jones. He had pretty good chemistry with Zappy too, but is he what he was like 3 years ago? No, but that's a little bit of a blow. But again, must-win game for the Patriots. We're gonna chug along.
I mean, you're absolutely correct about that. I mean, we wrote it off a couple weeks ago on the show that the Pats not looking good. What was going on with their quarterback situation? What's going on with everything? But I mean, the Colts. I mean, unless they, like you said earlier, spread the loving and actually give Pittman the ball, I don't see this going in the Colts' favor. So I do think this will be a Patriots win, unless we could figure it out over there and pass it to Pittman and actually get some balls moving. But I think with, like you said, Hines and Taylor especially being out, you can't trust this running game. So you got to look at the Patriots going to exploit that being home. Hard to take over that home field advantage. Patriots by 2 touchdowns, 28-14, sir.
Well, it's 2 uninspiring quarterback plays of late, so it boils down to Patriots have a better defense, and the Patriots have Stevenson and Harris. So whichever one gets going is probably better than Deion Jackson. So yeah, there you go.
Indeed. Oh God, love to see it. I can't wait for the Lions to upset the Packers at home.
I mean, they could. They certainly could. The Packers aren't beating anybody, so why not? Obviously we know the blow is that the Lions traded T.J. Hawkinson.
But to be fair, not like, and I know we read his last week's stats earlier in the show. I understand, Mr. J. But you can't say that, and you already know where I'm going with this. You can't say that he's really been putting up points for that Lions offense.
Him himself, no, but he played much better with St. Brown being out. Obviously, St. Brown is back, so that changes that dynamic. I was hoping to see his stats real quick, but yeah, like I said, that changes the dynamic a bit. Now you take that away, and they already came out and said that they're going to start Jamal Williams this week over Swift, who's their franchise back. So are we concerned about that? Do they end up rolling both running backs, seeing as they got rid of a playmaker in Hawkinson? We need to figure out what the Lions are doing this week. Khalif Raymond, like you said, had a good week last week. So what will he be? There's plenty of question marks on the Lions. We know what the Packers don't have, and that's receiving. So,
well, officially, I know it was questionable earlier in the week, ladies and gentlemen, but Aaron Rodgers is healthy and good to go.
Aaron Rodgers, or
yes, Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, I wasn't sure if going.
His pride hurt him. It was questionable if he was going to play.
Well,
but then he put his big boy pants on and he's ready to lose to the Lions.
He plays questionably, but yeah,
he's making an MVP look terrible the following year. But that's just me. Chargers go to the first place team, Atlanta. Good God, I hope the Chargers win.
Well, concerning news in Chargerville is Keenan Allen.
Is out.
Keenan Allen plays like 3 plays, re-injures his hamstring, gets a bye week. All is well, right? No, his hamstring somehow gets worse on a bye week, and as you said, will not be partaking in his trip to Atlanta. And Mike Williams is out. So now coming off a bye week, you're without your wide receiver 1 and 2. So Joshua Palmer is stepping into the 1, coming off a concussion. So he's one of the people whose health improved during a bye week. But you're without your 1 and your 2. Yes, you still have Austin Eckler. So a game that probably on paper would have been an easy Charger win seems to be less of a guarantee, but they still should win. And again, like I said, Patterson, who knows when he'll actually be activated. I believe they have to activate him by a certain time on Saturday. So if you are a Cordarrelle Patterson owner,
be on the lookout.
And you're in the dumps, for whatever reason, bye weeks, injuries, whatever, and you're hoping to get him in your lineup, you will know by Saturday, because if they don't activate him by a certain time, they just can't activate him Sunday morning and be like, oh, fuck it, he's going in. He has to be activated by Saturday, so you'll know if you would have him at your services.
Well said. Let's talk about the Bills going to be going to MetLife Stadium, where maybe a road trip to MetLife this weekend seems in the cards. But do the Bills dominate this Jets defense that, let me tell you something, hasn't been the Jets' problem?
It has not been. The referees have been the Jets' problem, but that's a given.
That's familiar, Bill. But do the Jets go toe-to-toe with the Bills?
No. I mean, we know the realistic answer is no, but
can anybody?
They need to. Yeah, that I mean, that's the real valid question, because the thoughts were the Chiefs and they beat the Chiefs. So
yeah, I don't think. I said
realistically,
it week 1 in the show. I don't think anybody's getting the Bills away. I think there's.
If you want an honest answer in the AFC, I think the only team, I think the 2 teams come playoff time that can match up with the Bills are the Chiefs, because they beat them last year in the playoffs.
Yep.
And the Dolphins.
Yep, I agree with both.
I think those are the only 2 teams that can actually hang with Buffalo, and that requires Tua being healthy, obviously,
and the whole team being healthy.
Because we see the numbers he puts up when he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying Tua's MVP, but he's putting up legitimate numbers for everybody who tries to find a fault for him. He doesn't have the arm strength. He doesn't have the accuracy. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. He's left-handed. Whatever. Excuses. When he's played while playing healthy and not having brain damage from undiagnosed concussions, the games he's played where he was legitimately healthy, he's been legit.
Mm-hmm.
The offense has been legit. All that. I know the running game tends to struggle, which is why they got Wilson to help out. So I think they'll get that on track. So those are 2 teams I think can keep up with Buffalo. The big thing for the Jets is if they're playing competitive, at halftime, maybe they get a little boost. As you said, the defense has been pretty good. They're obviously in for a tough matchup here, but their corners have been extremely good. I believe they're all top 12 in cornerback metrics. But can they tackle Josh Allen in space? Probably not. And so that'll be the big thing. So I want to see them keep it close at half. They'll lose by multiple points, I want to say multiple scores. I don't know if they'll lose by multiple touchdowns.
31-21.
They could certainly lose by like 13. So
Vikings Commanders.
So here we go. Second best team in the NFC versus a team that, oddly enough, is in the best division in football, where every team is at least 500 or better.
Indeed.
And riding a hot streak, because Heineke is playing quarterback, and I'm in no way, shape, or form saying Heineke's the answer.
But he's the better choice.
But they play better with him.
Yeah.
So it's just something about him. He is the Commanders' version of Gardner Minshew.
Goodness.
He's not flashy. He's not, whatever. But the team just plays better with him. So can they parlay that into a victory? I want to say yes, to be honest. Even though I think the
Ooh.
Vikings are the best team, I just feel like they need to like the Vikings aren't light years better than everyone else. Their offense is great. Their defense has its moments. If they can establish whatever they're going to establish, I mean, they need to establish a run game, but if they can establish whatever it is, if it's a short pass game instead of a running game, if they can establish that, I think they got a legitimate shot at beating the Vikings. McLaurin, another 100-yard game.
At home field advantage.
Samuel, I could see getting 65 yards like that. So you're looking at 200 yards between two guys right there. So then it just becomes, can Robinson and Gibson get it done, to protect their pass game? And if the answer
Absolutely.
is yes, then yes. I think the Commanders can upset the Vikings in this game, which would then make every team in that division over 500.
Wouldn't that be something? Who'd have thunk it, ladies and gentlemen? Who'd have thunk it? Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Heineke plays better with McLaurin. God, I know I'm a McLaurin owner in fantasy, and things have been looking on the up and up. And I think that indeed, if you're in this division that's very competitive, I mean, why wouldn't you go against the Vikings, especially how the Vikings are looking? Yes, I know you have Cook, you got probably the best wide receiver, but I feel like they could put up a fight. I have to disagree. I think it is going to be a like 28-21 Vikings, but maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? What I know I'm going to be right about is the Panthers losing to the at-home Cincinnati Bengals and bouncing back that humiliating loss to the Browns. Take me
So
away, Jay.
obviously we know that, things can change. So Falcons have a possible tough game. Panthers have what looks like a tough game. But again, if they win, the division just flips all over the place. It's an important game, obviously, for both teams. The Bengals started slow, had a rough week last week. They don't need to keep pace with the Ravens, but they need to keep pace / be better than the rest of the AFC. Wild card contenders. So this is a game the Bengals should win. I'm not gonna say it's a game they need to win, but it's a game that they have no reason losing. No Chuba Hubbard on Panthers, which wasn't a problem last week because Foreman put in work, but if they can find a way to stop him, PJ Walker's not an elite quarterback. The fun news of the week is former starter Baker Mayfield was seen in practice on the scout team playing defensive tackle. So how the mighty have fallen, Mr. Baker Mayfield, top end pick, commercials, blah blah blah, is now on scout team defense for the Panthers. Not like an elite Super Bowl contending team every season. The Panthers, who are not very good. Baker Mayfield, get on the ball, guy.
Let me tell you about Cincinnati. I think if you're a Tyler Boyd fan, you're going to have a great game because, with the absence, obviously, of Chase, Tyler Boyd having those big, big plays to definitely check into that. I just think also that Mr. Joe is going to be upset about his loss to the Browns and he's going to make a statement game to the Panthers, even though the Panthers arguably did have the best offensive showing last week. I think that was a flash in the pan, and we're going to get back to this shitty Carolina team, and the Bengals are going to win. And I think this is going to be a 38-10 game, Mr. J.
My bigger concern Bengals offense, and I find this a little weird. When Chase is in the lineup, Boyd's an afterthought. When Chase is out of the lineup, Boyd jumps Higgins and becomes the number one. I don't understand it. I'm not mad about it, but I'm just saying this. I just don't understand it. Like Boyd completely outdid Higgins last week. Yes, Higgins did get a touchdown. But what are they doing?
Indeed. And another team we can ask what they're doing was Las Vegas last week against the Saints. But now they have the wonderful matchup against the Jags, and probably going to be the worst football matchup of the week.
It certainly has that dynamic to be because you're coming off a team that gets shut out versus a team that had a 156-yard rusher and got
Now we got
slapped
to talk
because the
about
quarterback play was a little rough.
Devontae Adams, only 1.2 fantasy points last week. Does he put up a showing this week against the Jags?
I don't know if he puts up a showing, but I mean, it's pretty safe to assume he's going to get more than one catch for 3 yards. So I need to see. So obviously we established, right, in this game they both have 2 wins, I believe.
Mhm.
This is a game where Trevor Lawrence needs to be like, "Hey, I'm playing a below average defense. Like, let me not throw for 156 yards. Like, let me throw for close to 300. Let me throw 3 touchdowns. You know,
Let me show you.
if I throw 3 touchdowns and an interception, that's okay. But when you're throwing like 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions and throw for 156 yards and you fumble, that's not okay. Especially when you're
Mhm.
playing a team like this, you need to be able to exploit them. I know a lot of things I read said sit Kirk this week. I think the opposite. They need to come out and establish a pass game so ETN can do what he's now expected to do since there's no more James Robinson.
That's fair. That's fair. I think Las Vegas got to show up. You got to use your weapons. Hunt to run for every. I really need you to show up this week, buddy. I can't stress that enough. I literally have you're my best player right now on the team. That's how bad my fantasy is looking. I need you to show up, buddy. And I think you could show up against this Jacksonville team, and I think it's going to be a good game. But what I think is going to be a big statement game, meaning that they are still here and still going to play, is of course the Miami Dolphins taking on the Bears.
Well, again, we're not doubting that the Dolphins aren't, playoff caliber team they were last year, even with a bad start.
But let me tell you something. You cannot argue that Hill and Waddle and Tua don't have a thing over there. 150 yards each, almost every week, almost.
You don't have to argue it. Like I said, when Tua is healthy, this offense looks amazing, even without a running game.
Mm-hmm.
There's no arguing in that. No, not one person can argue that. So we know they can put up points. Are the Bears going to try and put up points? Is the real $1 million question. Like I said, yes, they got Claypool, which will definitely help out Fields. But when is this a game that they take the reins off? Maybe let him throw it 25 times a game. That's not outrageous compared to what he's been doing, but that's a few more passes.
People still very high on Fields. Do you think do you think this is the move for him, Claypool being there?
I don't believe that anybody is high on Fields. I believe that the sad part is he's the only one who's trending in the right direction, but he's coming from literally nothing. So his trending is, you know, Daniel Jones,
Hmm.
100 and something yards per game. So he's trending up to like 150 yards per game. When he starts getting into, consistent 200 yards a game and doesn't run the ball 20 times a game, that's when we'll start getting expectations. I believe I said it last week. He had extremely high expectations in college football. This is a whole different animal. Tim Tebow was
Indeed.
a great college quarterback. Things like that. You need to take that step to the NFL. There's no problem. There's nothing wrong with being a mobile quarterback, but if you're solely reliant on that, you know,
Something's got to give.
Robert Griffin, you know,
Huh?
was a running quarterback. He had a short shelf life. Marcus Mariota has reinvented himself, but he was a top 10 pick. Lost his job, became a backup, is now the Falcons quarterback. Stuff like that. Quarterbacks like that, if you don't evolve with it, you're not going to last very long.
I mean, this is going to be, I think, a bloodbath. It is. I mean, I think this is the Dolphins going to say, "Hey, we're here. We're still contending." You have the Patriots with that much easier matchup. You have the Jets needing to prove to the Bills. So, the Dolphins could be watching out. I just think the Dolphins are going to be going. But I feel like maybe they will indeed let Fields go, and maybe he'll play a little bit with Claypool. I don't think he'll be a lot in it, but I think he'll see a good couple of receptions. But Dolphins, I will say 28, Bears 10.
Way too low. I would see this being like 40, 45, 7, unless they really let Fields try and do his thing. If
Don't
they,
worry.
if they pull an Atlanta Falcons and throw the ball 10 times, then yeah, it'll be it might be like 65 to 7.
Don't worry. My outrageous score is coming. Seahawks going to Arizona. Is it the continuation of Geno Smith just slaying the birds?
It certainly looks like it because we know Kyler Murray ain't getting shit done. That's a given. But again, what did I just talk about with Fields? Murray needs to evolve. And he's got Hopkins back, so he's out of excuses. He has Hopkins, he has Moore, he has Ertz. Like, let's go, Kyler Murray. I'm tired of, being disappointed by you every week. I'm not even disappointed. That's why I don't even draft you in fantasy. I don't even bother. Like your draft, your ADP, and all that, and people who think you're better than what you are, they draft you way too high. When I get it. I'm not getting a ton of quarterback play for my team, but I'm winning. I'm not reliant on my quarterbacks winning me the weeks. You can find so much better options this season over him where he got drafted.
As a owner myself, I do have to agree with you, Mr. J. It's been rough. He obviously did not pan out. We had this conversation a couple of weeks and really stuck with me, Jay. It was, you were saying, he wants to be that elite quarterback, but he's definitely falling into that mid-tier quarterback style. And it's a shame to see, but I just see that Geno Smith is just on another level this season. I think him with Pete Carroll, they have. I don't want to say the Russell Wilson Pete Carroll effect, but I feel like they just have each other's back, looking good, have the weapons. I mean, I think Seattle is trying and succeeding in winning in this division, and I think it's just going to continue against, as Joe would say, Kyler Murray. Let's talk about the Rams taking on Tampa Bay, and good God Almighty, what game! I wish I could tell you what to expect in this game, Mr. J, but I can't. Cooper Cup's going to get his 100 and plus yards, but besides that, who's winning this game? Who's actually going to show up? Who's going to be fantasy relevant? Because, ladies and gentlemen, unless you have Cooper Cup, you have Henderson, who's floating between 6 to 7 fantasy points. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have not looked like they've been looking. Do you really think that Tom Brady is the answer? I mean, is the divorce and everything just too much for him? His head's not in the game, which understandable. Is Leonard Fournette the guy to take them to the promised land? I mean, I don't think, but in my eyes, I think the Rams will win this game at the end of the day. I think Cooper Cup's going to put up an insane game. I think they're just going to I think it's going to be a tight score, but it's going to be at the end 20 God, I'm with a lot of with the 28. Let's go 31-28.
So you're saying you lack creativity. Just touching back on Murray. The quarterbacks in fantasy points were right behind him. I understand bye weeks, etc. So we know Russell Wilson sucked this year. Tom Brady sucked this year.
Mm-hmm.
The three quarterbacks in fantasy points right behind Kyler Murray are Geno Smith, Marcus Mariota, and Daniel Jones. Three quarterbacks who probably didn't even get drafted are the three guys right behind him in fantasy points, and he probably went as like the top 6 quarterback, depending on your league scoring.
That's rough. Okay, that's rough.
But
I agree with you.
I
Did I not agree with you?
I'm just giving our viewers facts.
Listen, I hate to say it, but
You probably drafted, I some leagues I will. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out this year. Like I took Justin Herbert early. Some leagues I will take a quarterback, and other leagues I'll sit back and wait. But again, like I said, I would never reach for Murray, and the numbers just gave it to you. You could have gotten the same production out of Geno Smith. You could have not drafted a quarterback, picked up Geno Smith,
and been perfectly fine in fantasy.
and had this practically the same amount of value. So in that round where you took him, you could have got another difference maker instead of wasting it on him.
Maybe he'll prove you wrong. Maybe he'll upset Seattle.
That's what I would love to see. I don't draft him, but I was down on Jalen Hurts. And it's easy to see why, but he's been great this year, and I've swapped and said I think he's the MVP. But someone like Jalen Hurts, he went to Alabama, lost his job to Tua. What do we keep saying about Tua? He lights it up. So he lost his job to Tua, which means Tua's better than he is. Judgmentally.
Wouldn't that be a fucking Super Bowl right there?
That's certainly, then nobody's saying it couldn't be. Well, what did we just say? The teams that can keep up with the Bills, Miami and Kansas City.
That's cool.
So,
I didn't
like
think
I
about
said,
that right now. Whew,
it
that's
certainly
beautiful.
could be. But point being, he lost his job to Tua. He got benched in the national title game for Tua. Never started a game again for Alabama and transferred to Oklahoma. So he hasn't been that clear-cut guy. He lost his starting job in college. There was rumors about, him this season, like, is he the guy? Or are they going to move on from him? Blah, blah, blah. So, Jalen Hurts going in the right direction. Kyler Murray, who wants to be paid, wants to be a superstar, wants to be a rock star, wants to be on the fucking cover of Call of Duty, whatever. Get your priorities straight. Finish your NFL career. You can play Call of Duty all you want after that. It's simple as that. You worked your whole life to get here. You still got to earn it. You don't just get handed it. You're playing the team. They don't just say, "Oh, well, you're better than Geno Smith, so you win." No. Back to this game. I don't know. The Buccaneers.
That's what I'm saying. The first thing I said
let's just throw back. Both teams are a headache. At least the Rams know they're just going to throw the Cooper Kupp 20 times a game.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I feel like neither team has an identity at this point. Do you want to throw the ball 45 times to Brady? It hasn't worked. Do you want to run the ball with Fournette the last month and a half? It hasn't worked. So Bucs have no identity. Like I said, the Rams throw the ball a lot to Cooper Kupp. Other than that, they haven't been running the ball very well. They're now trying to see if Cam Akers will play on this team. So with that, saying that, and I do like Henderson, but saying that just shows you that Henderson's not the guy either. So whichever team loses this game, I think is done for, even with the Bucs being in a bad division. So cool, they come back and win the division. They're not going nowhere in the playoffs. Rams lose again. I think they're done for just because we see what San Fran now has with Christian McCaffrey and all that. So I think the loser of this game is in deep trouble. Deep trouble.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I do think the Rams will, at the end of the day, beat Tampa. I just think Tampa's just not what they are anymore.
No, definitely not.
And I think that the Rams, still have something to play for. We are the Super Bowl champs. Like we got to show you that we don't suck, especially in that division that you said just got McCaffrey and San Fran is showing up. But I think it's going to be like a 19-10 type of game. I think it's going to be a rough game for both, but 19-10, I think it's going to be a good game, though. What I also think will be an interesting game will be the Titans versus the Chiefs. Chiefs are at home. Can the monster Derrick Henry take down this Chiefs defense?
If he didn't have 32 carries last week, I would be less concerned just because he's aging back. So coming off a 32 carry week, Titans play Chiefs tough because what the Titans do, they wear you down. They pound the ball, and it wears out your defense. Their defense needs to stop Mahomes, though. So if they can force a few stops on Mahomes, You know, the running game will give them a chance. Like I said, they played them tough last year, so I need to see. Last year, actually, last year they blew out. They beat them 27-3 last year. The two big things are how many touches will Derrick Henry get, and it seems like Ryan Tannehill might not be playing again. He didn't practice. He has a sprained ankle, so if Malik has to play again, that could be a major issue.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to see that. I mean, realistically, if we had to choose, I'm pretty sure we would say that the Chiefs are going to win. So you know, assume that Derrick Henry is not getting 32 carries, and assume that Ryan Tannehill is not playing. So we put those two together. I like the Chiefs to win this, probably by. I definitely want to say 10 plus. I don't know how high I want to go. I think I'm just gonna go with 10.
No, you absolutely said it correctly, and I think that the Chiefs will end up winning. I think King Henry will get his rushes. I don't think it will be as substantial as last week, but I do think you'll get a touchdown, at least 100, I believe, and I think he's going to do some work on this Chiefs defense. But we have to also talk that the Chiefs, coming off a bye week, well rested, showing up to Sunday Night Football, wanting to show they could still run the football, take moves where they got to make it. Not sure about the running back situation, but you know what? Mahomes will make it work with the tight end, Mr. Travis Kelce, like he always does. And like you, Mr. J said, I will give 14 points. I'm going to go crazy here, Mr. J. Actually, 16. Let's go 34 to 18.
Go ahead, close this week out. Close it out.
Now, no better gift on a Monday night than the Ravens at the Saints. New Orleans, after the Saints systematically destroyed the Las Vegas. I predict this to be 117-3. The Saints. I think it's going to be a coming out party for Taysom Hill. You thought 3 touchdown was crazy. Just you wait. No, let's be in all seriousness. This is going to be a hard game to win. Now we joke around the matchups in the division. Everybody, Atlanta has it, Buccaneers have it. I think, and Jay, I have to say you would probably agree with me here. I think pound for pound, the Saints have the worst matchup in the division this week.
Probably only because
Right, that's all I need to say.
again
Jay agrees.
the Rams are not what the Rams were.
No, 100%. But I think pound for pound, Lamar Jackson, I've been saying for weeks, I love watching this man at quarterback between the rushing and the throwing and Mark Andrews. Hopefully you are good to go, buddy, because that would be nice for you to be on the fantasy board. A lot of Mark Andrew fantasy fans, not so happy with him. Had one good week, but
The bigger issue is that it's a Monday night game, and if he doesn't play at this point, likely he's been picked up everywhere. So if he doesn't play, you're out of tight end. Interesting. I just wanted to look up. It's only as of Wednesday. It was only a 3-point spread, which is extremely low, which makes it sound like
the Saints are going to be in this game.
the Saints are going to be in the game. The reason why I feel like the spread is so low is because this Ravens defense is just so abysmal late in games. But they did add some depth, so I think they're not getting valued as high. So again, with it being a 3-point spread, the game's in New Orleans, so really it's a 6-point spread, which is still one touchdown.
Which I could see for this game. 100%.
So I think Saints fans, well, at this point, nobody's happy that they lose. But if you stay within 6 to the Ravens, who, throw it out there, Rashad Bateman's out for the year. So no Rashad Bateman, possibly no Mark Andrews. That changes things dramatically. But you would think the Ravens are a much better team. So this is why the spread is so low on this game. It's kind of a trick, I would say. If again, my league pick'em comes off the Wednesday spreads, but if it comes out, because it's a Monday night game, if it comes out Saturday night that Mark Andrews isn't playing, the spread might drop even more. So now you got bettors looking at this game like, whoa, the Saints.
Do you think?
And that's a scary proposition.
Do you think if the Saints win, you could see them coming back into first place, Mr. J?
It wouldn't make a difference because Michael Thomas ain't returning.
He hasn't been here for weeks. We've done this without him.
But I understand that. But so,
and we'll also gain back Jarvis Landry.
And what has he done all year? So you go
Listen,
6. You go 6-11. You go 6-11 and win the division.
Okay.
Who are you beating in the playoffs? You're not beating anybody. You're not beating one team in the playoffs with 6-11. I know they say you got to get in it to win it and all that, but no, not a chance.
Listen, people said that about the Phillies.
Yeah, much different. The Phillies have Bryce Harper. They have Kyle Schwarber. The Saints have Alvin Kamara. And he doesn't do anything running. He averages like 3 yards a carry. But then gets 100 yards receiving.
So you still think the Saints win, though, right?
No. But like I said, if you came out and told me the rest of the season, right? If you said from here on out, right, from where we stand, schedules, where we're at in the division, whatever. If you came out and told me that the Saints had Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill, Jarvis Landry, with Andy Dalton at quarterback, I would have given them a legitimate shot at still winning the division. You lose a lot of that dynamic. So now knowing Michael Thomas is out for the full season, I think they need to really sit down and game plan Taysom Hill as a tight end. I get it. He ran 10 carries for 62 yards last week, which is nice. But you lack receiving options. You can give Alvin Kamara. You granted, like I said, he's not lighting it up on his yards per carry. But you can give Alvin Kamara the ball. And I'm not saying you don't have to not give Taysom Hill the ball, but Taysom Hill needs to be more involved in that passing game. Because we know he can catch the ball. We've seen it in years past. Get him
more active.
More active, so as we talked about earlier, teams not spreading the field. You have Olave who can spread the field, which is nice, but he's the only wide receiver. They're going to double cover him. So he's not spreading the field. But if you get Taysom Hill going up the middle at 15, 20 yards a chunk, spreading the field, that's something completely different. I will take Taysom Hill getting 3 catches for 60 yards over Taysom Hill getting 10 rushes for 60 yards.
Well said, well said. So you believe the Saints will win by 3,000 points?
I believe Andy Dalton is their best quarterback.
Yeah, that's
and as
debatable.
we've seen, Jameis is healthy and Andy Dalton's still playing.
Well, when everybody in the chat, if you watch the VOD of this, make sure you go in the comments and tell Mr. J that he's delusional and that Taysom Hill is forever the king of New Orleans and will be the quarterback that the Saints need just for this season.
If he was going to be the quarterback, he would have been the quarterback.
You know what? They will. The Saints organization will realize what they see. But
so when you're sitting in last place, then you're like, all right, let's put Taysom Hill in at quarterback.
And then he will light up the sky. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Of course, we come to you live every Friday at 6:30 on YouTube, on Twitch, and of course on Facebook Live. And of course, you can watch the VOD. Like I said, like, follow, subscribe, all that fun jazz. Mr. J, always a pleasure doing this with you, sir.
Absolutely.
Hopefully our teams win. That would be
nice.
Let me tell you something. Nice. We come in with it. Workout shoulders. You beat the Bills and I beat the Ravens. Let's go. Let's make it happen.
That would be a thing. Absolutely.
Let's go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, have a great day.